Good evening. Welcome to the studios of GBC24 and GTV. It's time for the news. I'm Akushika Akwe.
Good evening. I'm Siyoko Kwakutre. In the headlines, another building under construction collapses in Accra. The late Okwapenhini Osiadeyo Adudankwa leaves his footprints in the sands of time.
And GBC24 has a history lesson as we walk you through Tetekwashi's cocoa farm at Mampong, Equiapim. And over 100 people in Nigeria succumb to Lassa fever. We have Robert Frimpong Manso to translate the news in sign language. In our first story, at about 11 a.m. on Saturday, a portion of a building under construction opposite Holiday Inn at the airport residential area collapsed. So far, there have been no reported casualties, and eyewitnesses were tight-lipped about what exactly caused the building to collapse. When GBC24 arrived at the scene, the police were on hand and confirmed the statements made by those on the building site.
The police said the Ghana Fire Service had earlier in the day been to the site. A security personnel at the construction site said the foreman and others at the site during the incident were at the airport police station making a statement. GBC24 was unable to get them to comment on the incident. Last year, another building under construction in Cantonment collapsed, trapping and killing its owners.
Zoom Lion, in collaboration with the government, has presented 400 waste collection trucks and 5,000 tricycles to local government agencies to help in the effort towards keeping the country clean at all times. In a show of support, President Mahama and other dignitaries were at the event to hand over the equipment.
With the sanitation challenges of the country, the equipment providers have indicated that they will add 2,000 more tricycles later in the year to bring the number to 7,000. There were no further pledges on the trucks. Poor sanitary condition is one major problem Ghana has been struggling to overcome. Indeed, it was the only blot on the country's performance in the implementation of the Millennium Development Goals that has phased out. Society at large is held responsible for the sanitation woes. People dispose of garbage indiscriminately. The corporate world also appears not to have what it takes to manage industrial waste. The local authorities have also been unable to enforce the bylaws on sanitation. The equipment to deal with the nuisance are woefully inadequate, with supplies expected to come from government. Public indiscipline, polythene bags, the most notorious of the garbage mix, are not biodegradable, while the scientific community has also not been successful in dealing with the issue. These are some of the thorny issues confronting the nation. Many believe the sanitation situation would have been worse if a company like Zoom Lion had not stepped into the business of waste collection some 10 years ago. It now operates in Angola, Zambia, and Equatorial Guinea. Such operations will be extended to Benin, Congo-Brazzaville, and Kenya in the near future. Dr. Joseph Sian Ajapon is the founder of Zoom Lion.
We are committed to support government on its effort for the National Sanitation Day. And as a result of this, we are expecting 5,000 more tricycles. These tricycles and trucks are going to generate 11,200 jobs.
President John Mahama said the government was working to put an end to the crude methods of waste disposal, such as using the sea as tipping point for liquid waste and carrying pan latrines. The president, who recently introduced National Sanitation Day in a move to revive the spirit of patriotism, implored Ghanaians to be more responsible and friendly towards the environment.
We must end the disposal of waste into the sea. In this 21st century, it is not acceptable. Lavender Hill is going to be closed down, and there will be no more dumping of liquid waste into the sea. The liquid waste will be delivered at the Mudo and treated.
The equipment will be distributed to metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies to mop up excess garbage. Their efforts in garbage collection will be complete if there are enough landfill sites and the system for recycling.
And in the spirit of the National Sanitation Day, the Rotary Club of Accra Spintex joined fishermen at the Sakumono beach to rid the area of rubbish made up largely of plastic bags.
The Rotary Club of Accra Spintex says they chose the Sakumono beach for the cleanup because although a pleasure beach, the level of filth there doesn't befit the area. In their accounts, the Sakumono fishermen usually end up catching more rubbish than fish when they go on fishing expedition. The fishermen sometimes clean the beach only to bury the rubbish in the sand. The rubbish gets exposed later on. Mr. Daniel Kweku Techo, a fisherman, said he was happy about the exercise and that they will do it every month. The president of the Rotary Club of Accra Spintex, Mr. Fred Labi, said sanitation is a core value for Rotary.
The Rotary Club of Sakumono decided to come to help them clean the beach so that when they fish, they get more fish than rubbish.
The constitutional instruments that will govern registration for election 2016 may be laid in Parliament next week. The General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun Ketia, says the document is almost complete, and this, he says, is expected to make voter education more effective.
The General Secretary, Mr. Johnson Esiedun Ketia, was responding to an assertion that the National Commission for Civic Education has delayed in its public education campaign ahead of the elections.
Only educate people when the material is there. As we are sitting here, we are now finalizing the CI that will govern the registration, and it may be laid in Parliament sometime next week. So until it becomes law, the NCC cannot get a basis of educating the people. What are you going to tell the people? And then the Electoral Commission should also be able to confirm the time of the exercise.
Currently, stakeholders are finalizing the constitutional instrument to look at the possible mistakes and oversights in the CI. This is to enable members to make their input before finally laying it for consideration and adoption. Among issues being considered are requirements for the registration of eligible voters. The various political parties are not being left out of this process. Mr. Johnson Esiedun Ketia says the NCCE needs a basis to educate the electorate. He says the Electoral Commission must come out with all the dates before effective education begins. But for now, voters can be educated on their civic right to exercise their franchise. The NDC says it is also doing its bit of education on the exercise in the party. They have started a process to train close to 30,000 party agents for the elections. Mr. Esiedun Ketia spoke on some of the messages he will want the NCCE to focus on.
There is a tendency for people who have misplaced their cards to want to go to register, and in so doing, they create an offense of multiple registration. So that is a very important aspect of the registration, so that we would also educate people about how to get their cards replaced.
The National Commission for Civic Education's voter education campaign for the November polls will focus primarily on whipping up interest in the elections, tolerance of divergent views, and issue-based campaigning, among others.
With the nation heading towards election in November this year, some traditional authorities in the northern region have embarked on a campaign to ensure peace before, during and after the elections. Among the peace campaigners is the paramount chief of the Kotokoli ethnic group at Kwi in the Nkwanta area of the northern region.
The Kotokoli ethnic group can be found in Togo, Ghana and Benin. They are concentrated in towns such as Solet, which is located along one of Togo's ancient caravan routes. The settlement was given the name Sakode, which means to close. This is because the town was frequently isolated by traders, mostly tribal groups that tried to control the caravan trade. The Kotokoli migrated from what is now called Burkina Faso into the Sakode region in the 1600s and 1700s. They arrived as a confederacy of the Guruma chiefdom. During that time, the Kotokoli earned a reputation for being involved in underhand dealings in trade. The local merchants became annoyed and started calling them Kotokoli, which means they give and take back again. Eventually, the group came to be known as the Kotokoli, but they are originally called the Tem or Temba because they speak Tem, a Nigerian Congolese language. The Kotokoli are primary farmers who grow sorghum and yam as their staple crops. They also grow millet, maize, beans, okra and groundnut, and rear a variety of animals including cattle, donkeys, goats, sheep, pigs and fowls. The paramount chief of the Kotokoli community in Ghana, Waro Dauda Chidere Benai, advised his subjects and all Ghanaians to eschew any act of violence before, during and after the November elections. The Deputy Northern Regional Minister, Alhaji A.B.A. Fusheni, commended the Kotokoli people in Tamale for their respect for the rule of law and urged others to emulate their example.
I don't recall any case of criminality or serious acts that have tended to breach the peace, order and stability generally of this region, and Kotokolis have been cited as being at the helm of affairs.
At the Dapema Palace, the Dapema Dawuni Al-Hassan also commended the Kotokoli community for contributing to peace in the area.
The United Nations has praised Ghana for her contribution to world peace. The force commander of the UN's multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali, MUNISMA, Major General Michael Anka Lolsgaard, was interacting with the leadership of the Ghana Armed Forces at Bema Camp in Accra.
In a brief meeting, the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Richard Opoku Edusei, received the UN force commander on behalf of the Chief of the Defense Staff. Major General Michael Anka Lolsgaard stated that the purpose of his visit was to discuss pertinent issues of concern in the mission area and also to build stronger ties with the Ghana Armed Forces. He noted that the mission in Mali was quite complex due to the precarious security situation and the activities of extremist groups, among others. He said due to the in-mission training, MINUSMA has not recorded any major casualties since he took over command of the mission. The Chief of the Army Staff, Major General Opoku Edusei, together with other members of the military leadership, decorated the force commander with a Gav Kente stole, a plaque and some artifacts in appreciation of the visit. The MINUSMA force commander also called on the Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Maxwell Nagai, and the commander of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Major General Obed Akwa.
The Buipa Authority has donated a check for 10,000 cedis to support the registration of all residents of Brani onto the National Health Insurance Scheme. Brani is the farming community in Blanhafo, where the first cases of pneumococcal meningitis were recorded. The authorities at Bui decided to give the support on realizing that the disease claimed lives because the victims reported late to the health facilities due to financial constraints.
The pneumococcal meningitis outbreak was first recorded at Bruhani in the Tain district late last year. In the first week, 9 people died from the disease. The health experts say most of the victims reported late to the health facilities due to financial difficulties. The MP for the area has therefore decided to use his portion of the MP's NHIS fund to register all members of the community onto the scheme. This is to enable the people to report symptoms of the disease early to the hospital. The Community Relations Manager of the Buipa Authority, Mr. Salifu Wumbila, presented a check for 10,000 Ghana cedis to support the cause. The BPA has already donated an ambulance to the Wenchi Methodist Hospital, the main referral center in the area. The MP for Tain, Mr. Kwesi Jan Tutu, expressed gratitude to the BPA for the support. So far, over 200 people have been registered onto the scheme. The assemblyman for Bruhani, Dauda Muhammad, told GBC24 that the initial deaths recorded in the area could have been prevented if the people knew more about the disease and had the means to visit the hospital.
Okuapeman on Saturday held the final funeral rites of the late Okuapehene Osiadeyo Adodankwa at Ekropong to pave way for the interment of the late chief. Vice President Kwesi Misa Arthur was at the head of a government delegation to pay their last respects to Okuapem's longest reigning chief. Nuto Bibini Nuto has more.
The Okuapehene Nana Addo Dankwa's graceful bow last year, though a big blow to his people, did not come as a surprise. At age 84, Nana Addo Dankwa was on record as the longest-serving Okuapehene. His deteriorating health was no compelling reason enough to get a successor. According to some close royals, the last time an Ekuapem paramount chief was buried at Amamprobi, the royal mausoleum, was about 70 years ago, a phenomenon that weakens the potency of the Ekuapem soul. Thus, before the late Addo Dankwa was Nana Kwame Fori, who abdicated the stool on grounds of ill health. Prior to Nana Kwame Fori was Nana Kweku Twum, who was destooled. And after these 70 long years, a reigning chief has passed. It came as no surprise that the soul of Okuapemai was in high spirits, with rituals and ancient traditions on display. Many wore apparels suggestive of being traditional executioners. Periodically, people went into a trance, not being conscious of their deeds, like this old woman who would not allow any cameraman to take any shot of a traditional Kete performance. In the middle of reading the tribute of the late chief, a man blacked out completely.
Appointed in charge.
Mourners who came from all walks of life, as well as close relations, testified to the late Osiadeyo's open-mindedness and hospitality.
One essential attribute of my husband was his strong belief in Christianity. He was continuously guided in his traditional and chieftaincy duties by his faith in the teachings of Christ. Daddy taught us many valuable lessons very early in life. He managed to convey his high expectations of us without being a harsh disciplinarian. He chose often to speak to us, to help us reflectively work through a problem instead of defaulting to corporal punishment.
Apart from the two former presidents who hailed from Okuapemai, the late chief is credited to have made Ekuapem traditional area politically relevant. He played a role in every government since the Liman administration. He served on boards in the Rollins, Kufuor, and Atta Mills's government and played a father figure to President Mahama. Close associates say the late Nana Addo Dankwa's favorite number was 4, and he ascended the throne as Okuapehene at age 44 in 1974. He celebrated his 40th anniversary as chief in 2014 and ruled for 41 years, making him the longest-serving paramount chief of the Ekuapem people. Nto Bibini Nto, GBC24, Ekropon Ekuapem.
The news takes a short break. Please stay on. Thanks for staying on. It's now time for business. The GN Bank People's Gift Promotion Draw train made a stopover at Kumasi in the Ashanti region for the third mini draw of the promotion. 17 customers of the bank received several awards ranging from motorbikes, generators, refrigerators, LED TV sets and mobile phones. Mr. Stephen Appiah won the first prize and received a motorbike. Herod Ate won a generator, while Rita Johnson won the third prize and received a refrigerator.
An effort to enhance the savings culture of Ghanaians, GN Bank introduced the People's Gift Promotion in 2015. The promotion, which is geared towards savings mobilization, also seeks to reward loyal customers of the bank. To participate in the promo, one needed to open an account with GN Bank with a deposit of 200 Ghana cedis or multiples of it one stood a chance of winning either a 2015 Ford Focus or a trip for 2 persons to South Africa with $2,000 spending money or cash prize of 15,000 Ghana cedis. The draw for the Middle Belt saw 17 customers from both the Ashanti and Nahafu regions winning items such as motorbikes, generators, refrigerators, LED TV sets and mobile phones. Speaking at the draw in Kumasi, the general manager in charge of operations assured the public that the entire promotion would be free and fair for all customers.
I want to thank all customers for participating in the People's Gifts promotion. I encourage them to deposit and deposit more to enhance their chances of winning prizes. I also invite those who are not participating to start participating now. With only 200 cedis, you can win a trip, you can win a car, a trip to South Africa, or 15,000 cash, a motorcycle, a generator, a fridge, televisions or mobile phones. This is the time, and indeed is the time to join the one happy family of GN Bank customers.
The GN Bank's People's Gifts promotion has 4 more mini draws coming up in March and April before the grand draw in May.
Across the world, people are fleeing their homes in droves due to wars and for economic reasons. The crisscrossing of migrants and refugees across the world is being described as historic. Some European countries are stemming the flow of people seeking refuge in their countries since they are worried about the dent on their already frail economies and the humanitarian assistance that comes with accepting such large numbers of migrants. In the midst of all these, 60 donor countries meeting in London last Thursday pledged billions of dollars to ease the plight of Syrian refugees. In an earlier interview, GBC24 spoke to a fellow from the Center for Migration Studies at the University of Ghana, Professor Mariama Awimbila, about the economic impact of migration on a country.
Many countries are hesitant to receive the hordes of migrants crossing into their territories. This is because of the economic effect on their various economies. This includes gains and losses, but some believe that there will be losses in the short term, but may stand to gain in the longer term. For receiving countries, the temporary worker program helps to address skills shortages, but may decrease domestic wages and add to public welfare burden. The economic effects of migration for both sending and receiving countries may also vary depending on who is moving, especially with respect to migrant workers' skills levels. Some say the problem is not migration, but integration, especially in the labor market. If there are no jobs, the consequences are segregation, housing problems, and divided cities. For sending countries, the short-term economic benefit of immigration is found in remittances, which are funds that immigrants earn abroad and send back to their home countries. According to the World Bank in 2012, remittances totaled $529 billion worldwide, with $401 billion of that money flowing into developing nations. Significantly, these figures only account for funds sent through the formal channels. A fellow from the Center for Migration Studies at the University of Ghana, Professor Mariama Awimbila, said migration does affect the economy.
Migrant remittances is being put as the second, some people put it as the third foreign exchange earner for Ghana. So Ghanaians outside sending in remittances is said to be now more than official development assistance that we get. It's more than foreign direct investments that we get. So if we manage these remittances well and try to get much more by putting in place certain policies, migration tends to bring in a lot of money through remittances, through skills enhancement. Some people go out, go and do courses, come back, they bring back, they transfer the skills that they get back into Ghana. There are a lot of benefits that migration can bring, but it must be managed properly. If you just leave it, often you do not benefit as much as you should benefit.
The World Bank added that the remittances sent through informal channels could add at least 50% to the globally recorded flows.
Oil and gas firm BG Group, whose takeover by Royal Dutch Shell is almost complete, has reported a rise in its final full-year earnings. BG said pre-tax profits for the full year were $2.97 billion compared with a loss of $2.3 billion in 2014.
BG's losses improved from $8.3 billion in the financial quarter of 2014 to a loss of $1.17 billion for the same period in 2015. BG's results have been affected by the falling oil price. BG's results come in the same week as those from other energy giants, BP and Shell. Both maintain their dividend payout to shareholders. BG said its shareholders would receive Shell's 2015 fourth quarter dividend and would not receive a further BG Group dividend for 2015.
Global crude prices will average at $7 a barrel this year, giving hope for prolonged low fuel prices in oil importing countries such as Kenya.
The new crude price estimate is contained in the World Bank's latest Commodity Markets Outlook report. The forecast is a significant climb down from the average of $51 a barrel predicted in October last year. In reviewing the crude prices, the World Bank cited prospects for continued abundant supplies and weak demand. It said oversupply of crude oil is expected to be sustained during the year as members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, have declined to reduce output to protect their market share. The global lender also says supply will be heightened by Iran's comeback into the crude market following lifting of sanctions imposed by the West. At the same time, the bank says global demand for crude oil will decline during the year in response to slowing economic growth in China, one of the largest consumers globally. Overall, World Bank report estimates that the annual average crude prices will remain below the $100 a barrel mark last attained in 2013 in the period of 2025, when it projects the average price to be $82.6 a barrel. Oil prices fell sharply starting mid-2014 following increased production by the U.S. from its shale resources, leading to a glut. Locally, however, the fuel pricing formula has come under heavy criticism as it has not led to a significant drop in pump prices in tandem with the sliding global crude costs.
And that's it for your business.
Good evening and welcome to the My Journey segment of the news. My name is Winifred Efum. Today, GBC24 is giving you a history lesson, and it is certainly going to be worth your time. It all started with a visit to Fernando Po in the 1870s by Tete Kwashi. This was how Ghana got her first cocoa bean. Tete Kwashi introduced the cash crop 6 years after his return from Fernando Po. And today, Ghana is the second largest cocoa exporter in the world. On this segment tonight, GBC24 takes you on a journey to Mampong Ekuapem in the eastern region to visit the farm of the man, Tete Kwashi, who is directly responsible for giving Ghana one of her major export crops. Tete Kwashi was born in 1842 to Ga parents. In his teens, he was sent to Ekropon to be an apprentice in a Basel missionary workshop. He became a professional blacksmith. In the 1870s, he visited Fernando Po, now Bioko in Equatorial Guinea. 6 years later, he returned to Ghana with some cocoa beans, and being a farmer at heart, he planted the beans in Mampong, where he lived with a family member. Today, Ghana is the second largest cocoa exporter in the world. In recognition for his contribution to Ghana's economy, the Tete Kwashi Memorial Hospital was built in Mampong Ekuapem by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. However, this hospital, which is to serve as a memorial to this man, is in dire need of support. The medical superintendent of the hospital, Dr. Mauli Kotope Jacobo, is the best person to tell this part of the story.
You go to the accident center, you realize that it's been overtaken by records, and accident cases are not taken up at the accident emergency center because it's not functional, and we have to do that at the outpatient department. It's the only hospital that manages cases like that on the ridge, and yet this is the situation we find ourselves in. What kind of care do you expect patients coming with very bad injuries to receive? Presently, I can talk of no really functional anesthetic machine. And so when someone comes and is really injured, we need to anesthetize the patient to take good care of, we are found wanting. We are unable to provide the kind of care we want to. If we have a pregnant woman have to go to a cesarean session, we're unable to do a spinal anesthesia. How do we take care of these patients? The situation has been left unattended to for too long.
Already disheartened by the state of the hospital, my team and I set off in search for Tete Kwashi's farm, unsure about the journey ahead. We found out that the state of Tete Kwashi's cocoa farm is no different from that of the hospital. The farm no longer attracts the visitors it used to, but the tree still bears some fruits. The size of the farm, we're told, is 0.38 hectares, with about 500 trees at the last count. The caretakers here tell me that they are able to get 3 bags at the end of the year, and the proceeds goes to Tete Kwashi's family member in Accra. I am standing beside one of the 2 original trees planted by Tete Kwashi in the year 1879. The tour guide here tells me that all these trees we see around here came out of these 2 original trees planted by Tete Kwashi after his death. From Christmas Day in 1892 when he died, the farm was left unattended to, and likewise, the trees died with the exception of 2. Therefore, in 1960, one Openi Kwame Asumenin, a farmer who also had knowledge about the cash crop, was contracted to oversee the farm. It was he who nurtured all these trees from the 2 left. Ghana Cocoa Board, on the other hand, provides technical support by way of periodic fumigation of the farm, as well as other maintenance when needed. This mausoleum, which was to serve as a visitor center, was added on in 2006. Here, Tete Kwashi's belongings were put on display for tourists. However, since 2010, when the tour guide resigned, the center has remained under lock and key, and no one knows where the keys are. The building is also deteriorating. Interestingly, my team and I came across this application letter from a school seeking permission to visit the farm, and this certainly is a storehouse of part of Ghana's history. At the end of each day, the caretakers here lock up the place with this makeshift gate. My next stop was the house in which Tete Kwashi lived. Thankfully, the house in which Tete Kwashi came to live with a family member is still intact. We were told that 5 years ago, Cocoa Board renovated the madhouse for the family. We met a great-great-granddaughter of Tete Kwashi, Madame Dorothy Hammond, who showed us his room and some working tools they had discovered. And this proved that he indeed was a professional blacksmith and a farmer. Even though Tete Kwashi is said to have died on Christmas Day in 1892, his grave remains a mystery. There is no tombstone or marked grave to show his final resting place. Some say he simply vanished. Auntie Dorothy is also unable to help clarify this and calls her grandfather on phone. He says the family is still making efforts to locate the exact spot where Tete Kwashi was buried to clear all doubts. After almost an entire day, virtually going through the pages of history and exploring the life of one of Ghana's illustrious sons, my team and I set off to look for some kinky, only to find out that no one can get kinky on Wednesdays in Mampong. But that will be a story for another day. Tired but content to have experienced the world of Tete Kwashi, my team and I started a return journey to Accra to put together this history lesson. So, that was how Ghana got a name onto that map. Tete Kwashi is an invaluable part of our history and certainly one to be celebrated. That has been my journey for this week. Join us next week when we bring you another report. Who knows, we might be coming to your area.
In news from across our shores, the Somali military, backed by the African Union, has retaken Mecca from Al-Shabaab militants who seized the port city on Friday. Civilian casualties were reported after what residents say was light resistance from the militants. The AU on Friday denied it had lost control of Mecca, saying it had made a tactical withdrawal. Al-Shabaab was forced out of the capital Mogadishu in 2011, but still has a presence in large areas of the south. Meanwhile, Somali officials have confirmed that a bomb was responsible for the hole in a Somali airliner that made an emergency landing on Tuesday. More than 100 people have been killed by a Lassa fever outbreak in Nigeria as West Africa battles to contain a flare-up of the virus. Nigeria's Center for Disease Control statistics released on Saturday show that reported cases of the acute hemorrhagic disease, both confirmed and suspected, stood at 175, with a total of 101 deaths since August. As at today, 19 states, including Abuja, are currently following up contacts or have suspected cases with laboratory results pending or laboratory confirmed cases. The NCDC said deaths from the virus were recorded in the nation's political capital Abuja, Lagos, and 14 other states. Poverty is widespread in South Africa, and so are loan companies. Some have legitimate businesses, but others prey on poor people. The most unscrupulous lenders charge extremely high interest rates, and soon the small loans spiral into debt. Such loan companies are now being referred to as loan sharks.
This woman doesn't want to be recognized. She's afraid. The mother of four was desperate for money and borrowed $25 from a loan shark. It was meant to be a short-term solution, but turned into a disaster.
I was really need money for rent. So I take long time to pay this lady.
Soon, the $25 ballooned to $250 with interest. That's more than a monthly salary. The loan shark took her identity document as collateral.
I was scared. Sometimes they hit you, these people. They hit you and they want to take your things.
Failing to make ends meet is common here in Johannesburg. The official unemployment rate in South Africa is more than 25%. The official annual rate is much higher. The poor black majority remain stuck in poverty and are ignored by bigger banks. There are regulations for these lenders, but not everyone follows the rules. Interest rate is sometimes calculated daily, not weekly or monthly. There have been crackdowns on unscrupulous lenders, including arrests and business closures. There is a law called the National Credit Act, which aims at protecting consumers. Jacqueline Boachi says no one is allowed to take a customer's cards, PIN or ID books as security for the loan. There are rules in place to help people get out of debt, but many South Africans do not understand their legal rights, or even if they do not have the means to defend them in court. Estimates from the government-run watchdog of the credit industry, the National Credit Regulator, show that as many as 6,000 South Africans apply every month for debt cancellation. In spite of that, there are many who remain victims of the loan sharks.
Rescuers are searching the rubble of a high-rise residential building in southern Taiwan after an earthquake that killed at least 11 people. More than 200 people were rescued from damaged structures, many from a 17-story residential building that collapsed in Tainan. President Ma Ying-jeou promised an all-out effort to rescue people. Pictures showed rescue workers frantically trying to reach people trapped in collapsed buildings using ladders to climb over piles of rubble. One of the worst affected was the 17-story Wei Kwan apartment complex, home to at least 256 people. At least 30 are believed to still be trapped inside. Interior Minister Chen Wei-jen said he feared more people may have been in the fallen apartment block than usual as families gathered to celebrate Chinese New Year. He said investigators would examine whether the building's construction met requirements. And the number of Syrians trying to cross Turkey amid an upsurge of fighting in northern Syria has nearly doubled. The governor of the Turkish border province of Kilis said 35,000 refugees had reached the border area up from an estimated 20,000 on Friday. Turkey says it is prepared to help the refugees, but the frontier remains shut. They are fleeing a Syrian government offensive on rebel-held positions near the northern city of Aleppo. In the past few days, the Syrian army, backed by Russian airstrikes, has made a series of gains around Syria's largest city. We'll take you into the sporting arena shortly.
After an 8-year absence from the nation's sporting calendar, the novelty trail race of the Accra Turf Club has started. More than 12 horses were on turf to compete.
It was a dream come true for lovers of the sports of kings, horse racing. The event attracted sizable spectators. Some of the horses that turned up included Sea Never Dry, Pepper, Copter, Diplomatic Lady, Sly Mongoose, Mr. K, Bar Fira, Alvaro, and Shatter. The rest are I Thank God, Let Them Say, Yo Bibio, Ghana's Pride, Fresh Boy, and Mary Cruz. Fresh Boy, Yo Bibio, Hajia, and Copter won their race. The novelty trial race will continue next Saturday at the new race course. Officials say the grand launch of the sport will be held during the Independence Day Challenge Cup set for March 12th this year.
The Ghana Weightlifting Federation has launched a youth development program in Accra. This is part of efforts to popularize and ensure the continuity of the discipline by unearthing and training young and promising talents.
Weightlifting is one of the fastest growing sporting disciplines in Ghana. Ghana's athletes in this discipline have raised high the national flag at international events in weightlifting in junior and senior championships. In line with this, the Ghana Weightlifting Federation has launched a special youth development program in Accra. It is to scout and recruit young and budding talents below the ages of 13 who will undergo training to secure the future of the sport. At the launch, the president of the Ghana Weightlifting Federation, Benunu Mensah, touched on the need for the project.
We realize that currently most of the athletes we have are getting close to their 20s and their 25s, and we need to have young ones to replace them. Weightlifting hasn't had this opportunity of replacing them. So what our technical director, together with the board, decided to do that. We're going to do a youth development program and then focus on getting as many youth first within the Greater Accra region, and then later on we'll move to the Central and Ashanti region. So our focus was looking at children who are in the primary school and who are 13 years and below. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the product of what we started about 6 months ago.
I'm happy to announce that DUFIL has decided to support the Ghana Weightlifting Federation with a total sponsorship of 30,000 Ghana cedis, comprising of 20,000 in cash and 10,000 cedis worth of Indomie products.
Some of the selected participants demonstrated some basic techniques, including the clean and jerk, the snatch, and the squat. The Deputy Minister for Youth and Sports, Vincent Opona Samoa, was delighted with the progress made by the program.
We are the Ministry of Youth and Sports is already having discussion with the Ministry of Local Government. There's an aspect of the common fund that could be used for sports development. We are not saying football development, we are talking about sports development. And we are looking for a term that it wouldn't be only football academies, but we can have sports academies where our young guys can showcase their talent.
The participants were also presented with cash and some goodies. The project will target the Greater Accra region and will later be extended to other regions.
And sports news was by courtesy of Ejapia's Tornado Bitters and Tobinco Pharmaceutical Limited. And now time for showbiz. He is a comedian turned musician, a known face on television but new to the music industry. Some criticized his comedy, but that is not new in the industry. Now he's turned the corner and has discovered his musical side. David Oscar was our guest on Showbiz on GBC24. Here are bits of that conversation.
I'll be knocking at your door. It's like heaven's open when I see you smile, oh yeah. With you it's sunshine all day. Girl, you rock my world, you make me happy.
When it comes to David Oscar, he's a smart guy. I'm talking about how he writes his music, how he puts stuff together.
Okay.
You know, we didn't really take so long to record the song because it took us just 7 minutes, but it was on the bench for 6 months.
An Accra Circuit Court has issued a bench warrant for the arrest of Baden Hip Life artist Wise Agreed, who failed to appear in court on Friday. The development comes after reports that his lawyers abandoned him for failure to settle legal fees. Weiser is facing charges for exposing his genitals on stage at the December to Remember concert at the Accra International Conference Center on Christmas Eve.
And we thank you for keeping company with us.
Thank you. Good evening.